call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from last week.
Steve's got the batteries. Your batteries.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment period. First of all, reminder that no personal attacks are allowed. We have 2 minutes and 3 minutes.
Don Buckby, Yucatan Township.
Still doesn't work.
Not working?
Not working.
So talk loud.
Yeah, always.
Donna Buckby, Yucatan Township. I just am wondering what's happening here because it was my understanding that Jamie Hamel had to recuse herself on all things related to frac sand mining. And yet I'm understanding that she's been advising y'all and other people in the county about frac sand mining, the ordinance committee, et cetera. And as recently as September last year, her husband, Jed Hamel, wrote communication supporting in some way some frac sand interests. So he's still involved, and if she is involved in any way in advising the county, this would be a conflict of interest. So I'll give this to the press.
Anybody else wish to address the board?
I don't need a mic.
All right, loud and proud, there we go.
It's going to record?
Oh, it's gonna get you anyway.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Ken Jumper from La Crescent Township. I want to start by taking the 4 of you to task for your actions the last couple of weeks. It appears that you have completely abandoned any concern for the devastating impact that frac sand mining will have in Houston County, despite the fact Commissioner Walter, Commissioner Schultz, and Commissioner Zeminski, that each of you have in recent weeks said that you were opposed to frac sand mining. You set up a committee to draft an ordinance to prohibit frac sand mining one week and abandon it the next week, apparently under pressure from a very small, very vocal special interest group of people who stand to gain financially from the environmental rape of our county. But I really want to complain about your continued use of Jay Squires for legal advice on the Erickson Quarry and on frac sand mining issues. Squires has a huge conflict of interest. You are not doing the taxpayers of this county any benefit by having Squires advise you where he has an overt conflict of interest. When he gives you his highly questionable advice on the Erickson Quarry, is he representing Houston County, or is he padding his very lucrative relationship with Minnesota County's Intergovernmental Trust? Well, we really don't know, do we? It's not clear if he is giving sound legal advice to protect the public interest or self-serving legal advice to continue his law firm's very lucrative connection to MCIT. Commissioners, you owe it to the voters of this county to do a much better job than you are doing in seeking legal advice. Allowing Jay Squires to misinform your decisions, manipulate your conclusions, and misguide your actions while he benefits from his, what I consider to be, unprofessional conflict of interest is going to be, in my opinion, extremely detrimental to our county and discrediting to each of you eventually.
Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? All right. Brian, we're a little bit early, but if you'd like to move on with your calcium chloride.
Morning, Commissioners. Yesterday I had quotes due for the calcium chloride for dust control on our county roadways. It's something we do every year. The low bid this year was Freeborn County Co-op oil, delivered to Caledonia or Spring Grove at a cost of 86 cents per gallon. If they're going to apply it to the roadway, it would be $1.06 per gallon. That's 2 cents higher than what it was last year, so about 2.5% higher than a year ago, but it's within reasons. So I'm going to recommend that the board approves Freeborn County Co-op to provide calcium chloride to the county this year again.
How much do you buy? I heard that already, but I can't remember.
I think the number that we have, I don't have that sheet on me, I think it was 84,000 gallons or 82,000 gallons. Someplace in that ballpark is what our estimated amount is this year. Some of that comes to the county, some of it goes to townships, so not all that's county. And then the part that goes to the townships reimburse the county for the cost.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the bid.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
I want to take this with you. This is the City of Eidson's application.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sure. Let's move on to the consent agenda while we're waiting for human service update. Correspondence from SMIF in appreciation for the financial report. And Houston City notice of hearing on the conditional use permit. I think we got that in our packet, so. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of claims? Let's keep moving down.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims. Human Services and License Center disbursements.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approve the setup permit for Lawrence Lake Marina. And this is an annual one from the information.
Right, and this is something new to them. We used to have set up license in the county. I know Elder Supper Club had years ago. Basically, it's kind of a bring your own bottle, and you purchase the top or whatever to mix with your drink. And down at Lawrence Lake Marina, they have boats coming in, and people wanting to do that. And it's legal to do, but he does need a special license, and it actually comes from the state, but we need to approve it first. If I could just get a word.
I'll make a motion to approve the setup permit for Lawrence Lake Marina.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approve application for abatement. Richard A. and Lynn M. Carr. Should have been classified as homestead.
Correct.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the abatement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think the discussion on the historic jail Tess is going to do when she comes, so
Yep.
we're going to hold off on that. She's going to give us a report on that.
Not even Commissioner.
Commissioner, we do a commissioner report. Dana?
I have nothing. Teresa and I attended the
frac sand ordinance writing committee last night, and it was a very good, productive meeting, I thought. I was glad that Naomi was there. She seemed like she was kind of doing a good job keeping things on task. Just a quick summary. First part of the meeting, we just talked about the rules and expectations of the committee. We talked about some comparisons to other already existing mines in the area, volume, stuff like that. Kind of talked about, or touched on, I guess, road agreements and kind of reviewed the old road agreements that were first brought up at the original frac sand study committee meeting. And then we talked about getting a map and having Dan Cheska get a map for us so that we could have some visuals on trout streams, properties, just so we can get an idea of setbacks and things like that. So basically getting some things, preliminary things set up for the following meeting. So kind of house cleaning items to begin. And the next meeting will be in 2 weeks, hopefully on Monday. So.
Well, I have nothing to add to that. I thought it went very well, too.
Yeah.
2 hours flew by.
Yeah, it went good.
Steve?
And last night, Simcac held a board meeting, and I think the issue there is cuts in funding, mandated or unfunded mandates. They really need donations, so if you can see it in your hearts, a little money Simcac's way.
That's for sure. Have a bake sale or something.
Yeah.
Or 6 county-wide takes there in every town.
Right.
I don't have anything to report.
I had EMS meeting up in Rochester, that's Emergency Medical Services, and they are going to have Emergency Medical Services Week in May, and I do have a proclamation coming from our board because it's actually really kind of amazing that in the southeast region we have just EMRs, first responders, there's 1,034 of them. That's a lot. EMTs, we have 924, and we have 193 paramedics. That's quite a few people. That majority is all volunteer. So it's really, they need to be really acknowledged. And I will bring that up closer to that time so we can put something in the paper acknowledging their service. And then I had workforce development meeting, and of course that is a federal mandated, not mandated, but a federal program, you know, finding jobs for people that are laid off, educating people to find jobs when they need to switch careers. They're very busy, very busy. I know Rochester is having a lot of layoffs with IBM, so they're really active with them right now. Then I did the work study group, and Justin actually explained it very well. And now I believe Linda and group. Tim and somebody new. Morning.
Good morning. Should we go ahead and we'll introduce Lisa? Lisa's our new social worker.
Linda, you're going to have to talk a little louder.
Okay.
so-
Yeah, our microphones are not working.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. I'll just talk loud. Okay, this is Lisa Arneson, and she's our newest social worker, and actually we'll have another one starting next week as well, but Lisa is going to be doing, let's see, 1/2 children's mental health and about 1/2 children's disability services, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself, Lisa?
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be back. I had worked here probably 1999 or 2000. And then I had been at Olmsted County for the past 13 years. But then moved back, and I've been doing adult mental health and adult chemical dependency. Case notes there.
Welcome aboard. Welcome back. Nice to have you back.
It's going to be a little bit, Homestead County is kind of amazing, just their facility alone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's big.
Yes. Good, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, yep, we can go. Thanks, Lisa. Okay.
Back to work.
Yeah, first thing I want to do is, yesterday afternoon, you received an email that had our mission statement. I just want to pass around a final one, so you can see what a big one looks like. Our group of people have worked real hard at this. We will start there, and then you can, I'll just pick it up when we're all done. Mostly, I just want to tell everybody what a nice job they did. Each individual unit created their own in smaller meetings, and then when we had all the individual units done, which are child support, and there's a fiscal unit, there's a financial worker unit, and the social workers, each of them created their own for their own department. Then from there, then we got together as a large group, and with a whiteboard and a pencil, erased and changed and figured out our own. And so that's right up at the top, right under the Houston County Human Services name. And we didn't have a grant to pay for anything, so we kind of created that on our own, and we had a volunteer graphic artist who helped us design what it's going to look like. So now we will hang it in everybody's rooms. We'll put it on our website, and or we'll have IT put it on our website. And anyway, it kind of gives us an idea where we're supposed to be going, and hopefully helps center us a little bit. I think that's the idea behind the mission statement. We always did have the state mission statement, but it's kind of nice to have our own. And actually, it got asked in committee if every county has this, and I don't think every county does, because I went out looking, and some of them do, some of them don't, but I think it's nice to have our own. So that's where we're at with that. As far as updates go, we, right now, MNsure, with income maintenance is very separate from our EDMS system. And the 6 counties in our area that have gone together, all under Winona's wing with EDMS, have had a little bit of a problem with trying to get the two to talk to each other. And it ends up being a lot of duplication in a way of like names and filling in addresses, all kinds of things like that. Plus, it would be nice to be able to have one system that interfaces with the other. And so eDocs has created a fix for it, because at the time we started eDocs, we didn't have MNsure to work with or to, to interface, but now we do, and we need that. Anyway, of course, everything comes with a price. So the 6 counties, the price to do that is probably about $5,000 for our county. It's $45,000 approximately total for the 6 counties. Based on population, ours would probably be right around $5,000. And that really is just kind of an update. I think I brought that to committee last time too, whether or not it should be part of board or if it should be, just included in. It's kind of one of those unforeseen things that we have to take care of. So we would like to go ahead with that. Other than that, I have looked at the human services budget, and 25% of the year is gone. Our budget is about $4.5 million, which is huge. I know that. We are down to where we do mandates only, though, and where we're at with revenues, we have about 16% of our revenues, and yes, 25% of the year is gone. However, it's really a timing issue with our the way we get our funding. The state holds back most of our funding till the second half of the year, and actually, if you really look at the cash flow, the fourth quarter is when we receive most of our money. So to have 16% of our revenues by the first quarter really is about normal, and it's about what the state does. We are at 26% of our expenses overall, and that's I would say that's really pretty good considering what we've had going on. Tim will probably talk more to it, but we've had 5 commitments already this year, which I think is a record-breaking pace, and they're expensive, and you really can't help them. People need to be where they need to be. On a bright note, the foster care out-of-home placements, he'll talk about that too a little bit. They're down. They're wonderful, for many reasons, and so I think we're pretty well right on track with our budget, which I'm real happy about. Of course, some of the line items are not perfect because, individual line items, it's hard to guess how many commitments you're going to have in a year, or how many you're not going to have, hopefully. So anyway, that's where that is. Probably the biggest FYI I have for you that does concern me is car leases. And we talked about this in committee pretty extensively, but we have 3 county vehicles that are leased through the state, and we've been leasing vehicles, as far as I know, since at least 2005. It used to be a really good deal. For about, way back, like before 2011, we would have a lease that would be like $13 a day for a car. That included buying the gas and the maintenance. If it needed tires, it paid for the tires, the whole 9 yards. Well, then in 2011, we re-upped 3 leases, got 3 different cars. Those were 5-year leases, and seems to me we could put 75,000 miles on a car. And of course, they no longer paid for gas anymore, but they still have included the maintenance such as tires, oil changes, wiper blades, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I thought, well, you know, I know our leases are coming up. I'm going to look at what they're going to be. And I asked them for prices this year, you know, because they don't have the 2015 prices for leases. So, but I can tell you in 2014, the lease prices per car have gone up anywhere from $200 at minimum to $250 per car. Right now, we pay, with the lease we have, we pay $925 a month for 3 cars. And like I say, that includes maintenance and everything. That works out to just a little bit over $11,000 a year right now. So if we would go ahead and lease again next year, we would end up adding about, onto that $11,000, we would add anywhere from $7,500 to $9,000 onto the price of leasing 3 cars. Well, by the time you do that, that's $20,000 a year to lease 3 cars. We're kind of getting to the point, well, we have to buy gas, either way it goes. We're getting to the point where I think it's probably wiser for us to go look at buying a car than releasing. And I'm thinking, golly, I hate to let this come and get us next year and have to buy 3 cars next year, because our leases do come up next year. The other quirk in the whole thing is that we have, we've already gone over our mileage for 2 of the 3 cars that we have. That speaks to me that there's quite a demand for the cars. I know the people, the social workers especially, use them probably more than anybody. Everybody tries their best to use those cars. Those cars are busy all the time. Social workers especially are out of the building a lot. They're out, you know, helping people. So then we get into the penalty phase of leases. And I know last time we turned in our cars, we had over 36,000 miles that were over our lease allotment. And the state was nice enough to forgive those 36,000 miles and not penalize us. But I think at that point in time, it was about $6,000 penalty is what we should have had. And then the other thing that falls into this is that the miles we pay out right now at 56, it's 56 cents a mile. It was 56 and a half cents not that long ago. But we're paying out right now about $20,000 a year in mileage for cars, people having to use their own cars, which is not a good situation, because when people use their own cars, their personal liability is at play there. If they're in an accident or whatever, it lands on them personally. The county would be the secondary insurance. Is that right, Shar? Yeah, so we're also asking employees then to take that responsibility in their hands. And sometimes they have to transport clients, and clients aren't always good. Sometimes they do things. I know one time a client broke a side rearview mirror off of a car. So we're kind of in a pickle. We're thinking, and I know, Justin, you've got a question. Maybe you want to go ahead, and I'll tell you what we're thinking.
Well, I only got 2 questions. How many years are the leases?
5.
5, okay. And then, out of curiosity, do they offer any buyback programs off of the used lease once the lease is up to buy them back for a certain amount?
Well, that's why today's an FYI. I've got a lot of research to do.
Okay.
I think you might be able to. I know in the past what they've done with leased cars at the state is they have an online auction for cars. So people can go, in fact, we had people inquiring about whether they could buy some of those cars online.
two more quick questions. I know you've got information, I can talk to you more about it, but out of curiosity, do we, with these cars, is it just to get the worker to and from, or do we transport more than one person in the vehicles, or how does that work?
Oh, well, like a worker would come to the county first.
Yep.
And then they would take the car out, they make home visits, they transport clients.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll have a car full of clients. Sometimes, there'll be meetings, and so a carload of people will go to the meetings with those cars. You think of anything else?
Mostly it's a lot of transport's priority. So if somebody else has a car signed out and somebody else needs to do a transport, they'll bump. Typically that's what we really want to use the cars for, is client-specific things.
And last thing, obviously, you had mentioned that you're projecting the new lease is going to be $20,000 for 3 cars.
Mhm.
And that's not counting like fuel and all that kind of stuff, so.
Right, not counting the fuel.
That's just straight up lease.
Right, that would include maintenance, but not fuel at all.
So basically on 5 years, we're well over the 30,000 mark on a lease, right? At 6,000 a year per car, and 5 years is 30. So you're looking at, I'm just trying to get a handle on what you're asking for. So you're trying to look for a car that's obviously going to be less expensive and just buy it outright is what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, and I've done a little research on that, but I need to read through the material a little better. I asked, there's 2 people here who have quite a bit of experience buying cars. First, I had to tell you though, I know what a lot of other counties are doing. The leases have gone kind of by the wayside, and a lot of counties have been buying a car a year. I know like Wabasha County buys a car a year. I don't know if they're going to this year, the way it sounds, just because I visited Friday with the one director from Wabasha. Anyway, I don't know if they're going to this year, but a lot of counties buy a car a year, and then instead of leasing, they're buying a car every year. So it's kind of a wash on the cost. Plus, if it ends up being a good vehicle that's sturdy, it can last longer than those 75,000 miles. I mean, most cars do now. So yeah. And then I forget the other part of that, but that's what other counties are doing.
Well, I would only encourage if you did buy it, we're running into 150,000 and not 75 or
Oh,
100.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right. So we're kind of buying one anyway,
Right.
which is sort of sad, but
What, Tim, you're going to say?
Well, typically when I was in Washington, there was a discount somehow through Human Services.
yeah.
So Human Services would always buy the car. They would get that added discount onto whatever it was, and they would do some car shopping, and then that would go into the county pool eventually.
Sure.
And so you would end up having a pool of cars. So we had about 7 to choose from at that point. And then the expectation was is you always check to make sure that you had a car available before you use your own car to cut down on that mileage cost.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can tell you right now, I'll take my own vehicle because I already know the social workers need the cars so much worse than I do. I'm not transporting clients or whatever, so that is what happens now. And that's a lot of why, well, not just me, but people who don't have to transport clients, we all try and make it so the social workers can use the cars first because they have clients. And I don't know, not that, good or bad, but not everybody's good in your car, Some people are willing to spill pop and other people aren't, and so it's nice to not have to use your own car for that. The reimbursements, this is where I was going before and I kind of forgot my way, but there's a couple people at the county here. I know between Doug and Brian, they both know and understand how the state bids work. And this morning in committee, Mary Marshall too was adding that really if you're going to be buying cars, the dealers can't do as well. Not that I wouldn't want to ask them, but I'm almost certain that it probably would work better through the state bid. And so then you get the discount that way. And then the other advantage Human Services has over, say, the rest of the county buying a car is that we can, through our formulas, we can submit some of that for reimbursement. So our formula right now, it's like 48-52 or something like that, 48%. So 48 being income maintenance, 52 being social work. The ironic thing is the social workers seem to use the car, but we are allowed to run that through our formula, so we get more reimbursement through income maintenance than social work. It works out really well. So we do end up getting right around a little less, but maybe somewhere around 24-25% reimbursement. And actually child support works into that too, so we would get part of that there. So it does end up being an extra discount that we're not getting if, say, the county, we're turning it in, and like Tim says, we eventually could have, I don't know, almost a little fleet of cars, and then some of them could be for the rest of the county too. After a 3-year period, I think it is, I'm waiting for details back from the accountant up there, but I think it's after 3 years, then they can become a county fleet car. So it would be a good deal all the way around for everybody. And
Last thing, I got a couple of phone calls from car dealerships at one point. So
Yeah.
even if we do on the state bid, I'd encourage you to ask them, because I know they mentioned too, they said, I know we can't compete, but it's nice to be.
I'll be
offered."
glad to
So,
do that. Yeah, I don't have a problem. In fact, I don't know for sure, I am like such a non-car shopper that I'm probably going to need help on, I don't think there's a lot of wheeling and dealing with the state. However, I don't even know for sure all the car dealerships in Houston County.
Yeah, and I just had a couple of phone calls. We know we can't compete with the state bid, but it's nice to be offered. So.
It is nice,
Yeah.
yeah, very nice. Yep,
Is
that's
there
not a
only
problem.
one new car dealer in Houston?
Yeah, I suppose in
County?
Caledonia, right? Yeah.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, we can do that.
This was all brought up at committee, and Linda's just gathering as much information.
Yeah, that's good.
And we thought
Appreciate it.
everybody should know,
Well, keeping us in the loop, that's
keep you
good.
informed.
And just for a point too, when we had our CJC meeting, the probation and stuff, we're also talking about other counties that have county cars that they can use to go do what they need to do, which,
Well, we should restructure, have that pool.
Yeah.
And just
Yes.
bigger, like you said, too, so we'll look at that. It's good.
Yeah, what I really would like to do, instead of being hit with buying 3 new cars next year, I can't say it's really in the budget. However, in a way, it is in the budget, part of it anyway, because I'd like to buy one maybe by this fall and then have 2 next year. What we could do is turn in one of those vehicles that's already over miles, hopefully. I'm researching that too to see if we could do that. You let me finish up what I'm doing, and what I'd like to do is turn in 1 or 2 vehicles and maybe purchase 1 or 2, because right now we're paying the lease payment anyway. No matter what we do, we'll be paying for gas. And I will say to you, we have the fleet cards like the highway department. So because of that, we do have some of the taxes taken off of the gas. So gas isn't as bad as it is for you and me to buy gas.
Well, looking at the numbers, I think you could save substantial money too, buying
Oh.
not
Yeah.
a over elaborate car, but a decent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I look at the state vehicles right now. I do have some stuff from there, and for like $19,000, you can buy a very
Right.
decent car that's, not even a little cracker box. It's a decent car. And it's just like $20,000 a year to lease cars. Why aren't we buying one?
Right.
It just makes sense to me. Not that I want to get into all the having to buy cars, but I think it's time. Doesn't make sense to not do it, so. Just so you know, and I'll be back probably. Other than that, that's pretty much what I have. The legislature's on break until after Easter, so there's really no updates there. Tim?
I'll try to move pretty quickly, but looking at, kind of what Linda said earlier, our commitments have been something of a concern. We've had 5 adults at this point that have been committed. An issue that we ran into, law enforcement often takes our individuals over to Wisconsin, over to Gunderson. And currently, there's no contract in place. There's only one contract that allows interstate commitments, and that's in Clay County, in the Fargo-Moorhead area. And so basically, without that, you can't really have somebody on commitment and be held in Wisconsin because they don't follow Minnesota statute without this contract in place. So what really is happening now is we have to work with law enforcement getting everybody over to a Minnesota hospital. And so because they will not commit, if somebody needs commitment out of Wisconsin, doctors won't write the letter of support, should not be ordering meds, court ordering meds at this point. And so really, I'll be working on that contract with Gunderson to start with, and then eventually with Mayo to get that in place. So basically, if somebody's in Wisconsin, they have to be committed through Wisconsin court. They cannot be committed through Minnesota court even though they're our resident. And that's just because there's differing statutes, and right now there's no interstate agreement between the 2 states that's in place. And so I'm going to be working on that. And will likely be the host county for, I'm guessing, at least Winona and Waukesha at this point as well. And so that's coming kind of down the pipeline. I would guess it's going to take at least 90 days to get something drafted, working with Gunderson attorneys. to get that in place so we can, because it only makes sense. A La Crescent officer should not have to drive all the way to Rochester to have somebody on adult mental health hold. They should be able to utilize gun center at this point. It's not legal. And so right now we're going to try to change that and do what we can. We did have a commitment training yesterday. Roger Schwab came down from the Ombudsman's office. He drove here from Wilmer. It was about a 3.5 hour training. And we covered everything from mental illness, chemical dependency, developmental delays, and mentally ill and dangerous commitments. Great training. Very informative what the timelines are, what the processes are. We had a good turnout. We had about 20 people there. And really just working on getting it right. This is an issue not only in our region, but across the state right now. I don't know what it is, long winter.
So was it a kind of regional training or just a county training?
I opened it up, and we had people there from Goodhue, Winona, Wabasha, that came down for this. Yeah, Fillmore was here. And so, we had people there to really look at how we can do it and how we can make it better. Basically looking at how we can maybe stay commitments, change things, because honestly, you put somebody in commitment, they go to Anoka, it's a really expensive placement. We're talking $1,000 a day to have somebody there. And so we're looking at avoiding that at all costs. And one thing that might help is just some more preventative stuff that we can do, and are utilizing our mental health case managers the best we can to do some case planning, some safety planning around that. And so I'll try to move from there. And like I said, it's going to be an ongoing process, at least 90 days before that contract's even drafted, I'm guessing, to look at that. But moving on to a bright note, child placements are down significantly. We're looking at first time being under double digits since 96.
At least 96, yeah, that's as far back as anybody can remember.
Knock on.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and I really credit this to some really hard preventative work that's happening. Parent support outreach programs, changes in how we operate and doing more crisis planning, more safety planning around families, getting out there and being more active in families to create safety and utilize family strengths and resources that we do have in the area. Honestly, they're working hard every day. They're out there, and you want to know why their mileage is so high. It's because they're always gone. They're out there, they're hands-on, they're doing what they can. We created some different forums, we're doing some different things, safety planning. And I would like to continue that and moving in the right direction. There's a couple things I want to look at coming up in the next, 6 months or so. There's currently one person in the county that does family group decision-making, and it's me. And so I would like to have these two people trained for that. And what that is a way to engage families to come up, kind of figure out their own solutions to issues. And to facilitate those meetings. I don't know of any trainings coming up, but typically they're done by the state and they're free. And so I'd like to send a couple people to that. And then there's a maltreatment conference in La Crosse, which I'm probably going to send people to as well. Close regional things that can get done. And just keep that momentum going on how we provide safety to families in the community, how we reduce the impact of trauma to children and abuse and those types of things. And so, like I said, it's heading in the right direction. I'd like to keep the momentum going. It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be families in crisis and that need help. But as long as we're addressing it appropriately and doing the best we can minimize it, I think, to do and to serve the population the best we can. So, really, I have a few other things, but quickly, we have Medica coming down again to hopefully increase our TCM rates for mental health. So basically, our hits right now, targeted case management. And so basically what it is our reimbursement that we get for doing our job. And typically right now we're under mainly the state MA1, which is one rate. Medical will be doing a tiered rate based on the time we spend with clients. So this should actually increase the amount of revenue that we get from these hits pretty substantially. And that will be in place, I believe, the 15th.
It's supposed to be today, yeah, but I haven't gotten anything. But maybe I haven't looked at my email yet either,
right,
so
that's
much.
true. Yeah, and so they're coming on the 26th, I believe,
Yeah.
to kind of go over that stuff with us. And so, and then the other one is just kind of looking at beds and availability of housing for individuals, adults with disabilities at this point, and working with some of the surrounding ABLE and ICANN to create some different living arrangements or what we can to kind of meet our need as well. We have some shifting that's happening in some individuals, so kind of integrating that with what DHS is looking for as far as beds to kind of create some more housing options, whether they're less restrictive than what we have now, to kind of really address what our needs are in that area. 'Cause we have quite a few that are in and out of different placements and bouncing around, so we're looking at stabilizing that at this point in time by creating some different housing options, which is also a big push by the state as well. So that was my quick synopsis of community services.
I should mention Karen is at a training today for Blue Zone. Everybody knows what Blue Zone is, right? It's it's kind of part of the software we use for Maxis, MMIS, Prism. Prism is a child support software. MMIS is basically healthcare software. Wouldn't you say?
Service arrangements, waivers,
Yep.
chemical dependency, all runs off of MMIS.
Yeah, and then Maxis is a income maintenance program. So they have created some enhancements, and she's up, I believe, in Rochester. Is it Winona Learning? So she kind of has to do it because then she'll bring it back to her staff instead of pulling all the staff out. So it's a good thing.
Thank you, good report.
Thank you.
Good luck with car shopping, Seth.
Oh, God, I hate that job.
Hey, Tess. Bring the disaster group up.
We are a disaster.
This is just bullets. Thank you. You're welcome. Having trouble problems this morning, so. Just enough. Would you want to come up to him?
Oh, sure.
I think he's operating on lack of sleep there. I did bring Blato's Long Johns to the disaster crew this morning, so let's keep the sugar levels up.
You have to talk loud because I don't think we're.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, we're not?
That's
Okay.
not working.
Well, what I have in front of you is just a very brief outline and put a little more meat on it for you, but just to officially, just to get into the record, to let you know that there's a Friday, April 11th at approximately 7:30 a.m. Member of the fire department reported to dispatch, if that's correct.
That's correct.
I wasn't here. That there was leaking from the historical jail. Subsequently, they called me, but John was there. John located prints. John made sure that,
I got prints from Mark, yeah.
from Mark, we made sure that the gas was shut off and what we could do. I'm trying to figure out, it took the city a little while to figure out exactly which main it had and which valve was actually supplying the water to the facility. Approximately, it's just an estimate, we're not really sure, approximately, the city told us approximately 300,000 gallons of water actually reached into the building. Fire department was very prompt, supplying us with 2 pumps. They actually, I was surprised how everybody just kicked in. That water was out of that building by 2:30. Maybe a little earlier, maybe just a few minutes, but it was approximately 2:30. I know Scott was in, thanks to, everybody just kicking in. Scott was on the inside of the building at the very end, just kind of vacuuming and sucking it up at the other end. Really appreciate all that work. We have what I'm referring to, maybe it's not the correct word, but ancillary water damage, if you will. It doesn't look like it's too much damage to this building, but we did have water coming into this building, into the boiler room. I don't think there's any residual problems that we know of right now from that. However, there was water that went into the Justice Center, both into the IT closet as well as into the
electrical room and including into the conduit that for both of those rooms. And right now we're kind of determining what that really means for us as far as ongoing problems and issues. The MCIT was notified and they sent an adjuster down right away Saturday morning, came down, told us that we had 2.2 replacement value with I think it's a $2,500 deductible. I do want to verify that deductible. However, and it is a replacement value policy determined upon whether or not you want to replace and redo or whether you want to just use the non-replacement portion of the policy that wouldn't be at full value, would be at half of that. That's a decision the board will have to make after we have all the information in for you so that you have all the facts in front of you to make that determination. John has worked diligently this week in getting electrical and heat lined up for that building. We do need to dry it out no matter what the board determines to do, and we will be hiring a professional cleaning company that will be able to properly and appropriately dispose of the soft
Yeah, ceiling
materials.
tiles mainly, I guess it is.
Pardon me?
The ceiling tiles mainly.
Ceiling tiles and
Or anything.
some of the walls.
Yeah, sheet rock.
And I did go ahead and notify Pathfinders. They had our prints, so I had to get them from them, and they'll be doing just a walkthrough so that they can do the historical verification of what might be salvageable and what might not for us yet this week. Dan has made prints, duplicate prints. We've got them digitized for that building. By the way, this is we're going to get all of our prints digitized so that we don't have to. This has caused us to improve that process as well for all of our buildings. I appreciate his. He did that in very short notice for us. John, the electrical is all hooked up, ready to go over there?
Hoskins is working on it right now. He thinks it should be a pretty simple fix. The water didn't get up to the level of the lugs. He thinks existing wiring that goes between the buildings fine. It's rated for a wet location. He's also going to try to hook up some temporary lighting besides at the same time. And also Window Controls is going to show up this morning and start installing the heat part of it too. So hopefully by this afternoon we'll have both electrical and heat in there.
And what are they anticipating to do for heat?
They're going to hook up furnaces. I talked to the adjuster, and they could bring in a truck, a semi supply, which is very expensive, and he said no. He liked the idea they're going to bring in home furnaces like you do when you build a house. They're going to hook up 2 natural gas furnaces and run the exhaust out the window and stuff to supply heat that way.
So the building has to be 65 degrees, in order to, before we get the cleaning crew in. And so we will do that. And I thought it was very noteworthy what John just said about the electrical being, how'd you put it, water?
The water didn't get high enough to get the lugs of the disconnects, so that's a good thing for us on that part of for getting heat or getting electricity in there instead of running temporary like you do with the new construction. They can use existing what we have to save money that way.
So that was,
So those boxes that were in the basement?
The water level is just below where the lugs are at.
Just below, really?
But we did have some damage from the sprinkler spraying on some of the breaker boxes on the different floors, which you're gonna disconnect the wires to the breakers to make it safe.
Yeah.
which brings us to another point I want to clarify, because, you know, like anything, there's a lot of potential rumors that float around. And one of the rumors that's floating around is that Houston County was not heating that building, and that is an error. That building's been vacated since October 31 of 2011.
Yep.
And we cleaned it out, took a while to get everything cleaned out. That building did have heat. The heat source is supplied from this building here through the boilers that we have in this building, and it's the loop, the water circulation loop goes over to that building, supplied heat there. Now, so I did want to make that very clear. The county acted reasonable in supplying that heat. The we didn't fully winterize that building. What we did do was we drained the plumbing in that building, and we did winterize the plumbing system, you know, antifreeze, if you will, the drain systems and things like that. However, what was not drained, which should not have been drained, and we followed appropriate protocol, was we did not drain the sprinkler system. So when the question comes up, where did that water come from? And there's no doubt that it was that we had pipes frozen. It was the sprinkler pipes. And I just want to clarify that for members of the public and the press so that people understand where the damage really came from. And that's what John's referring to. So we have damage, water damage from the top of the building on down. There wasn't from the bottom just coming up. Winona Controls right now is, oh, by the way, before I go any further, once we get the building cleaned up, then we will, it was recommended by the adjuster from Ramon and Nevin that we then get a general contractor in who can give an estimate for all of the repairs, the plumbing, the electrical, the whole ball of wax. That will probably take the better part of the day of having a contractor here going through things, and that portion will also be covered by insurance. We just have to get it pre-approved once we get the cost of what the day would be. And we'll have somebody like, I'll remind you the name, Mark.
Knudsen Construction.
Knudsen Construction or the like. We're looking to see who will come out and do that. And then once they give their estimate, we will have information for the board, and the board can then determine what it wants to do going forward. The other thing the thing that's really in question right now is why did these pipes freeze? I think it's very telling that the first 2 winters we had no problems at all, nothing. And Don Moore was in that building on March 23rd, and we didn't notice any. We've been in and out of the building on the average of once a month, apparently, admittedly not frequently enough, or we might have seen something. But we were in there on March 23rd, and Don said he did not notice any problems. That doesn't mean we didn't have something frozen prior to that date. That just means we didn't notice anything. The question has come up as to, why that building, what might have caused the freezing. I mean, obviously, the adjuster said that they're having problems similar to this all over the state. We did have an unusually cold winter. And considering the construction of that particular, the building, and it was always a cool building. Those who occupied it can tell you that, but it really got too cold, obviously. One of the concerns, though, that is that our heat loop somehow was compromised. That's between this building and, I've always get turned around. There, thank you. From outside, I'm okay. And the jail, because we noticed that we may have been, as of last Tuesday, noticed some having difficulty with the boiler system shutting off. We thought it was just an airlock in the system because, the city power went off on Monday, so we had to reset the boilers on Monday. We thought that kind of might have caused the problem we had on Tuesday when the boilers were shut off. I think, John, you reset them on Tuesday. So we bled them out thinking that it was just an airlock. But what we're checking out is to see, was it an airlock or did we have a breached return loop there that all along that could have compromised the other building, and that was not related to that building setting vacant, but rather truly to the severity of the winter. So that's where we're at. You want to talk about your stuff?
Well, like she indicated, there was water that went into the adjacent buildings. As far as IT goes, there was some conduit into the server room that did fill with water. We know that because it was spewing water into the server room. We did Saturday start having problems with our fiber, or with our cluster, as I call it, our cloud between the buildings. We noticed these problems started happening, caused some failures. Over the weekend, we came in and got them back up, failed again on Monday morning. kind of coincidental that it happens right after this floods. The ground is very saturated out there. I do have ACE here today actually testing the fiber, so we can find out if the fiber is good, if it was in fact the fiber getting wet, or if it was something else that caused the problem. Could have been Murphy's Law, could have been something else just happened to go. It's just ironic that it happened right after it flooded. Hard to say at this point, but we're still looking into it, so get more information on that as it goes.
Also, all the services that are being done over there, the heating, the contracted work right now is all, like she might have said too, is with the insurance claim. So this is all part of the insurance claim. So it's nothing coming from the county, my understanding, right? It's all through the insurance.
So
No out of
question,
pocket for the county at this point.
so we had room in the electric room and the IT.
Pardon me?
We had water in the IT and down in the electrical, right?
In the Justice Center,
Are you talking in the lower level?
yes.
Were anything else affected, like conference room carpets, that kind of stuff that we have to worry about?
No, so,
Yeah, it's all lower, pretty much lower level, and it traveled through conduit, the way it looked to me.
Onto concrete
What I saw.
floor.
Yeah.
Okay, so it didn't go under the doors and into the hallways?
No.
It's, like I said, in the conduit mostly.
Okay.
I went and looked at the IT room on Friday afternoon, and it was just a damp floor. I think the boiler room over here was just a few, it was minimal.
So it
just
wasn't
damp.
necessarily the floor, it was more the conduit and all that kind of stuff?
Right.
Okay.
well, both the rooms have a drain in them too, so like
Oh.
the boiler room here, it went to that room and the drain in the room started emptying it, so.
Oh, okay, so it does have drains in case water doesn't get in.
yeah.
So did you move all the IT equipment out? or-
Well, last night, we moved some of the equipment over there so we weren't as dependent on the fiber between the buildings.
Okay.
So we did move that over here last night. We'll see how that goes. So far, we've had no issues since we moved it, so again, points more towards a fiber issue. But again, we'll just have to see what ACE's results come back with. Could have been a situation too where there was water in the conduit, now the water is leaked out of the conduit. Now it's not causing any problems. It's hard to say at this point. So we'll have to see how that develops. It'll be tough. Fiber is typically a medium that either works or it doesn't. And with our sporadic use, or that's what all the logs indicate is the sporadic, it makes it very tough to diagnose. So also being that this fiber is just owned by us, it's not managed by any phone company or anything like that, it's just simply a run from this building to that building, it makes it a little tougher too.
Worst case scenario, you have to,
Worst case scenario, if it is found to be something water related, it would be remove the fiber, patch the conduit, run new fiber. It would be covered by insurance. Again, that'd be worst case scenario. As of right now, I don't know for sure that it is water, so.
the other thing to note that damage to other buildings might be, although they might be related to the same event, I'm not certain if they would be with the same deductible because each building, he raised the issue as to whether they would be separate events. Insurance law is always kind of a funny little thing, so we will take a look at that when we cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm not certain that that's how.
He wasn't for sure on that either. He said it's possible.
It was just
depends
raised.
on our contract, or our,
It was just raised, and we
Yeah.
haven't done a fine reading of that, and it's pretty straightforward when we get to that point, but we're not at that point to raise that issue yet, so I just want to put it on your radar.
So from here on out, are you gather some more information, bring it back to us next week, and where we're at, damages, that kind of stuff? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't know if we'll have all the damage information back to you, because we'll have to wait until I can get the cost to you of the cleanup, and a little more of a time frame. And because we can't have the damage estimate until the cleanup is concluded.
Sure.
Something, the idea would be to have someone like Service Manager come in and they get rid of the bad stuff, remove well, not walls, but the
Some walls.
sheetrock, any of the
Yeah.
sheetrock that's been soaked, and things like that. Get it cleaned out, and then after that, cleaned out, dried out, after that, then a contractor would come in and give an estimate of, okay, what does it take?
Now, with that, okay, having the estimates on what it would take to repair it, but, and Shar, correct me if I'm wrong, but we talked at the Historical Society too about also the possibility of eliminating that building, correct? So that option's still on the table too, that.
Well, it's possible it might need to be condemned.
Yeah,
You don't
right.
know.
Exactly.
And that's where the insurance company said 50 cents to the dollar if you don't replace it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the, okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about like something like Service Pro or something like that?
Service Pro
Yeah.
is who the adjuster mentioned. He said, I'm not recommending them, but
Service Master.
Service Master,
Yeah.
excuse me, Service Master, but apparently they do a lot of work for MCIT.
Sure.
Well, we would probably see who is out there,
Yep.
who can be the quickest response, and if there's a couple of them, we'll get quotes from a couple of them. I think we have an obligation audit-wise to do that. And maybe it's not a requirement for the insurance to have 2 quotes, it's a requirement as far as our own due diligence. And if there is someone available, but we need somebody who's certified to do appropriate disposal of whatever it is they find, and that goes into their quote, and we don't have to worry about that.
There could be some asbestos inside here too that they need to look at.
Maybe in the floor type.
I mean, there's always,
Well,
Right.
and
Yeah, look
that's
at all
what their
that.
certifications are for, they handle that. And so, you know, the nice thing about dealing with asbestos is, you know, the way you deal with it is get it wet. So, there you are.
but keep it wet. No.
And then there is no, we don't have any, you know, I know there's a lot of also conjecture as to whether the building is, you know, whether it's required to be condemned. Certainly, the board can make a decision whether or not the board wants to keep the building. To date, we don't have any indication that we have structural deficiencies. We have a lot of indication that we have soft fiber and soft flooring damage. We have buckled wood. We have absolutely no indication yet. When we get the general contractor in, that will be one of the things that they have to look at, is whether or not we have structural damage in the exterior walls and the supporting structure of the building. I want to make that very clear. There is no professional determination of that yet. Just some folks throwing things out that they think it's condemned. Certainly, it is not habitable at this time. And there's a difference. There is a difference. So that's all for that report. And do you gentlemen have anything else you'd like to add?
We'll keep plugging
We
away
had a
at it.
very busy weekend.
We will keep you, I will make sure you get, as soon as we get more information, I send Chairwoman Walter updates and
Yes, I appreciate
on a
it.
regular basis, and I know IT Director does as well, so we'll keep you informed.
Thank you. Thanks for all
Thank
your
you.
work, you guys. Yeah.
Thank you so much. John, you want to stay here for a second? We can talk, please. We had some printer issues this morning, so I only printed off one copy of Bob's. I'm going to talk about this historical courthouse rekeying project here. When I came, it's been, believe it or not, almost 5 years ago. It's hard for me to believe that much time has almost gone by, but it has. One of the concerns that I had when I first came is a key audit for the building. And everybody, the department heads and folks, we all worked together the best we could. And we really tried to be accountable for all the interior keys. We certainly, for those listening out there, the building isn't compromised. Exterior keys are all accounted for. But it's all the interior office keys and access codes and things like that. So that was one concern. Not too long ago, we had a fire alarm go off. And I can't remember, it was maybe over about a month and a half ago or so. And it was after hours. I believe Ann was here, Ann Dearson in my office. One of the maintenance staff was here as well. And fire department responded, and they got into their Knox box, and what they had was a mess of keys in their Knox box. And it became very apparent very, very quickly. Although we didn't have a fire, it was an incredibly good practical drill for us to realize where our gaps were. And so the two issues that come to mind is human safety and also security of our data and our resources that we have here. And that, so I went out, John headed this up for us, and we went and got, approached 4 contractors, vendors, excuse me, and we've got responses from 2 to date declined. And we have responses from Bob's Lock and Safe and American Key out of La Crosse. What we're proposing right now, what I'm proposing, and the safety committee's also taken a position on this and is making a recommendation, is that we have this building rekeyed, including all internal offices, at a cost of $7,339 plus the cost of keys, and I'm going to have to buy another keypad for one of the human service offices as well, and that's going to run approximately $600. What we will have is a Grand Master that will be put in the Knox box, and that Grand Master will be open up the building and every room except for HR and human services. Those will be, excuse me, I said that wrong. The Grand Master will open everything up, okay? There will also be 2 sub-masters, okay? And one will be a sub-master that's given to maintenance to do their cleaning, and there will be a separate sub-master for the rooms that have to be, that you can only clean in there with, by escort, you know, the new federal regulations for human services and all. So we will have that. Each interior office will also be keyed. We've been trying to work through key assignments and everything that hasn't been successful in the past, but here going forward it will be. The key is checked out, put it on the person signs out for it, it's in their personnel file, and when they vacate that office, whether they're transferring just across the hall, or if they're leaving our employee, they have to come back in, turn the key in, and get a new key for wherever they're going, or just leave it turned in. The second bid that you see there from Bob's, I'm not recommending because that's just the exterior suite doors only, and not any of the interior doors, and I think it's time we do them all. From a safety response perspective, I just want to give everybody an update. Not long ago, we redid all the alarm system and the alarm panels for this building. And when we did that, we also put in, replaced all the sensors, you know, even in our HVAC system as well as the ones on the outside. And we have a notifier system now that goes straight over to the dispatch. And we don't have to go through a separate vendor or anything for that. Now the fire department can, and they haven't been able to do that until we did all that. They can isolate where the heat's coming from, which alarm is triggering everything else. And with this, they would be able to access that in a moment and get in there. And as of Monday the 7th, the fire department supplied them with new maps, new room numbering. Our numbering now is easy for them to follow. All the signage is there, and they went through and did a walkthrough, and they all have maps for that as well. So I think this has been a major undertaking with little baby steps as we went, and it was affordable for us that way, and this is kind of the last bit in that regard. The only thing I'd like to do further for security for this building is then we'll be looking at updating our camera system and our exterior swipe card system. That's just going to be a lot more costly, but and that's in Bonnie Village. We'll see where that goes, but if not, if we have to do it, then we'll do it maybe next year.
When we rekey this building, will we be looking at just 2 main entrances?
At this time, actually, I would like that. However, we don't have the other 2 doors on card swipe yet. And so we have some offices that use those doors primarily.
And they would have keys to it then, right?
If we shut those other two doors down for egress only. I'm not certain we're at that point yet for egress only. I'm going to talk to those department heads. I actually am thinking only, that we probably only need a key for is it the south side door for the surveyor's office because they haul equipment in and out. I know there has been a concern raised, well, if we shut the other doors for the east end, that people would actually have to walk to the front of the building. I really don't consider that much of a walk, a few yards versus a few feet. If we shut the doors down, I would like to just limit the key access to the building to card only, with the exception of, at this time, so I think that's controllable, with the exception of the surveyor's office. And they haul heavy equipment as an OSHA issue, a safety issue. We want to minimize the steps they go up and down in the way of the things. So I have to talk to those other departments. We're a little spoiled, if you will, here. I mean, if we can't park, a yard or two, and I'm not meaning just employees, I mean all folks, if they can't park 2 feet from the front door, they consider it an issue, and we consider up in metropolitan areas, if you get parking within 2 blocks of your building, you've parked close. So I would like to directly answer your question, Commissioner Storley, I would like to do that. I don't want to issue keys to everybody, with the exception of the 2 that I would issue to the surveyor's office, and then when we got the key access. And we could put key access at both ends, and that would, all employees could come and go more conveniently.
I just think if we're looking at spending this money on the rekeying, I think we need to address security at the same time.
Right, and we have talked about that. It would have to be egress still. What we'd be doing, we only have 4 entries to this building. We would still probably potentially have 3. I mean, we're not a big building, so it's real easy. Fairly easy to secure, but it would be nice to be able to only have, to be able to shut those 2 off to egress only.
The one opens into a stairwell, right?
Well, the one that opens to a stairwell is the one that is used by maintenance and surveyor's office.
No, I mean,
The north one. North. That's right.
North entry.
Across from the bank.
Oh, I called it south, I meant north.
Yeah, the other.
I really am not,
Gotta bring a
when
compass.
I'm in this
to work.
building, I cannot figure out which direction I'm going. Okay,
so the north door
north,
it's a
And north-
convenience door, but it's also to me, it's a security thing because you can come in there and go any level of the building.
it is to a stairwell. You can go any level of the building through any door we have.
Right.
But that door, I'm not in disagreement with you. I would like to see, where it comes in is if we did a lockdown. And that comes into play for security, is when we do a lockdown that we're only dealing with 2 doors that aren't locked down rather than 4 doors, and law enforcement is trying to deal with multiple entrances. It's not going to keep somebody from entering the building who has malintent. It's after because you've got 2 other entrances.
Right.
But it is going to assist us in a lockdown, securing the facility, and hopefully minimizing loss of life or injury. And like I said, it will help law enforcement at that point. I don't want people to assume that it's going to make us safer, because we still have the other 2 entrances. That's how we respond to an event. So at this point, I'm asking the board, we do have, was there anything you wanted to add about?
Well, the one thing you did mention, somewhere down the line, we're grandfathering right now. All the doors that enter into the hallway should be lever access. In case there is an emergency, so in case you're incapable of using your hands, but he said we're not required at the moment. That's something we should be looking into the future.
Lever instead of push bars?
No, lever instead of a knob doors and then going out the hallway. It's kind of required, if you build a new building now, it's a requirement.
What's the?
Your suite doors.
The suite doors that
Suite.
to get out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He mentioned that to us. He said we're not required because we're grandfathered in, but that's something we should look at in the future of changing those out also. But
So each year, we're making progress, I think, and good progress. And we have a plan in place to keep going forward. And I would like to do what you're asking sooner than later, and I would hope that I'll bring that back to the board as a time period.
Maybe we should consider those lever handles at the same time.
Well, let me find out how much it will be. I agree with you. No, I agree, because it requires, that'd be another rekeying. So let us come back, if we'll put this on hold, let us come back with that. And I was trying to keep costs down, but let's see what that is.
Because otherwise, when we go to do it, then we'll have to pay again.
I wasn't aware of that.
see, it was
Thank you
mentioned
for
by
bringing
the
it.
first one. Sorry about that. It's my
That's
fault.
okay. No.
It was mentioned, not mentioned by the first one. The second one that came through and did the walkthrough, and he mentioned that part of it.
Okay.
But I don't know if it would be a routine.
We'll find out. We'll come back to the board.
Yeah.
We'll get our ducks in a row.
Is this a budgeted item?
Well, so to speak, you give me
Okay.
a maintenance budget to maintain this building annually, and I have to try to prioritize where I put it and what rises to the top and keep emergency funds aside. Well, I keep, so it has been eaten away at over the years. I'd like it not to just be an emergency fund, but it has to include money for routine upkeep and maintenance going forward. We've made a lot of changes, we've repainted a lot this year, we're doing where we can with it, and this is important.
Just because you guys are here, I have one other question. In committee today, it came up that the ceiling in the recorder's office had leaked.
We weren't notified of it, so unless we're notified, we don't know. But when did it leak?
They changed the ceiling tiles.
Is that Friday?
It was sometime before April 1st, the week before April 1st. And somebody changed the ceiling tiles, but they don't know if
Craig do
the,
that?
I don't know. Don't know anything about it. I'll find out. Thank you for mentioning it to me. You said it was the recorder's office?
yeah.
I know that when we get really hard driving rains, because the roof is what it is, that we sometimes will have water run down, follow a little pipe into the building and everything, and you will see a little brown spot appear.
They
We have
had
one in our office.
carpet wet, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Huh, that should have been a report made to me. I-
Sometimes if you have driving rain, it'll go into the crack in the walls and get in behind the flash. I dealt with that when I worked.
I'll
The
follow
driving
up on
rains
that.
will get into the cracks. There is a product that'll seal those cracks. I don't know, I don't even know. She said it was a flat roof that was leaking.
I don't know if the flat roof was leaking or whether we have some kind of fascia or something where we had a pretty
Could be a
hard
flashing.
flashing.
With all the freezing and stuff that moved.
People always say it's the roof, but it's not always the roof. It can be another part of the building.
We'll give John something extra to do, water related.
So we'll come back with that. And the last thing is, we're looking at, I don't know if Mark is still here or not, but our security system in with SGTS, the maintenance agreement, we would like to renew it. And I talked with SGTS, and it's a little under, they're asking for a little under 4% increase on the new contract. I think it's still with a very reasonable contract. We're not looking at doing it for a year. We're looking at putting it on an annual calendar. And so we either have to do it for this point to the end of this December, or we do it for a full year and more plus. And I prefer the latter, as do they. And we're named insured on their policy. The documentation for the accord and satisfaction is forthcoming for the new one, but we are there, and I don't think there's been any problem with their service at all. In fact, they've been very timely with everything they do. They seem to know exactly what they're doing. And this is something we cannot do without. It is not an optional. We really do need a maintenance agreement for our security system in our Justice Center. So with that, I'd like to present these to the board, and I'd like the board to, I don't know if you do that by consent, since it's an ongoing agreement.
Motion on it, don't you? We need a motion on that.
Let me put the amount of this agreement, and with attachments is $3,400. My cents are wrong. $3,466.67. I'm going to make that correction with that. And it would be from here through December 31 of 2015. It's hard to think that far.
Need a motion on that?
Okay, move to approve?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One of those necessary evils.
Maintenance agreements actually save us money in the long run.
Okay. Anything else, Tess, that you have?
Nope, I'm not.
I signed it, yep. All right. We got most of the agenda done. Unfinished business, I think Justin gave the update on the Braxton issue. Do you have a report on the highway department?
We met with Brian the other day. One of the things we talked about was getting in another company to kind of give us an updated estimate on maybe some thoughts, ideas on the prints that we currently have. Just kind of getting an outside company to just look at it, since it's been quite a few years since those prints were redone, if there's ways that we could cut costs. An opinion on site locations, on building construction materials, that kind of stuff. So.
When was the original one then? That's been quite a few years.
Oh,
Been a few years.
6.
Oh, 6.
Don't quote me on that, I have
Okay.
no idea.
Okay.
But for some reason that number is coming to play. Anyway, so we had that discussion. Brian sent Steve and I kind of an updated email on one of the companies that he had contacted to kind of give I guess, get their opinion on.
Yeah.
It didn't sound like they really were going to
They
give
didn't
too
want
much
to do it.
information. In talking with Brian, Brian had mentioned that he thought he might need Basically, what he said was to get what they want, they would need 3 more acres, and thought that the school was still a better viable option with prefab walls, and he didn't think he could go smaller on a building. So we're kind of still at a stalemate whether or not we're going to be able to cut costs or any savings. But we're still trying to figure that out and kind of get in touch with some other companies and see what we can do. I know we had talked at the one meeting a few weeks ago when I had brought in the computers. We had talked about not wanting to do a huge, big complex and that kind of stuff.
Or even doing it in stages, you mentioned.
Right. In that, financially, from a financial aspect, I guess when I run the numbers, it makes sense to do it in stages when the money becomes available, since we do have other things that we need to put our financial monies towards. I know that, the other flip side of that is some of these contracting companies would like to do it all in one shot, so they don't have to keep coming back, and then it's cheaper if you do it all at once, but do you have the money? To give some direction, because right now it seems like we're shooting in the dark, and to give some direction, I guess, my opinion has always been and always will be, we've got $600,000 in an account set aside for this project. I know we have a wheelage tax now for $196,000. If we use that wheelage tax for 2 years, plus the $600,000, we have $992,000.
Don't we have that MCIT, is it MCIT money?
Yep. If
refunds.
If it's available.
Yeah.
And I guess, to be honest, I would like to see some direction given maybe to the committee as far as how much money is the county willing to allot, so we can look for plans, or if we have to start doing it in stages that we can kind of start planning for it. I guess my thing was we've got just shy of $1 million or so that would be available in 2 years, using just those two plus anything from MCIT. And I guess with that being said, I would make a motion that we have a cap of $1 million and put towards this project using that $600,000 in the next 2 years' funds, so we can start going with some sort of plans and give some direction, so we're not just shooting in the dark.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And wouldn't it be easier to get this second opinion on how much it could cost people?
Yeah, it could. Here's
Put a
the
cap on
issue.
it?
Yeah, see, here's the issue. From a design aspect, like when we're doing projects with various companies, usually, the company will say, okay, we have this amount of money set aside, here's what we can do for that. Rarely would it ever be that you would say, okay, we don't care what it costs, make the blueprints, we'll figure out if we have the money. So right now, we've got one project that Brian had estimated that it would be roughly $4 million to do. After you include interest and stuff for bonding, you're looking at almost $5 million. So that's one of them. If we have to go less than that, how much less than that? What direction have we given for how much money we're going to set aside? I don't want to just go to a blank check and say, well, figure out what you want, we'll figure out if we have money later. We got to have some sort of money set up that we say we can
really
only
aren't
afford X
spending the
amount.
money until we, I think I'm still looking for more concrete costs before we can actually, we haven't spent the money, we're just gathering information.
Right, and I see you as doing one here and then the other here. You're giving a low and a, these two extremes. But how can we set a price if we don't know what the plan is to do?
Well,
That's huge, because if we need to have so many square feet in order to make this building efficient, how can we say, this is how much you have? I want to see a needs first.
Sure. Real quick, I just want to remind the board, we do have a motion on the table first, then we can have discussion. But
we don't have a second.
I'll second. Okay. Now, for discussion-wise, sorry, I just keep going in order. One of the issues that I have, we were talking about if we can't get another company to come in and give us a second opinion, and like this company said, we have to go to an architect. Well, if we go to an architect, we're looking at tens of thousands of dollars to go and look at these prints all over again. Now, if we do that and we say, okay, bring in an architect, we don't have any set cost, and all of a sudden we end up with a $10 million blueprints. Now, do we go back and say, okay, we don't like that one, here we're going to spend another $50,000, make new prints? You know, I mean, we gotta be, if we have to go to an architect, we gotta be able to say, here's our budget. This is how much money we're willing to set aside. Now you know what we have to work with. Now, there's a difference, needs and wants. We know what we need, and we do need a maintenance facility. My thing is, let's cover our needs first. Let's get that maintenance facility out of the way first. The heated storage, the cold storage, some of that stuff we can do later. But we know what we do need. Now, within that building, what do we need in order to accomplish that? Well, we know that we need to have a few bays to do maintenance. We know that we need to have, chemical storage, that kind of stuff. So we know what that's at. And if we had a number, we could work within that number and say, this is what we can do. But right now, it's, well, we want this, we want that. What's it going to cost? I don't know. So
That's why I'd rather get the information
What does the
ahead of
need,
time.
yeah, what does the need actually cost?
Yeah, what
Yeah,
is,
I think we
yeah.
need that.
And that we don't know.
And then, the prospect of when we have extra money, the only way that a government has extra money is if you levy for it.
Yeah.
We're not a revenue generating corporation, an income producing company. So generally, we don't have extra money. I think it's if we're under budget, let's say, we prepare a budget and we're under budget throughout the year, then that goes into fund balance, extra money that we can probably get to. Otherwise, there just isn't any. You don't levy for extra money without having a purpose. So
now, Shar, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to the jail being built, most of Houston County, and as the auditor, you kind of know this, was debt-free, if I'm correct.
We were debt-free.
So we have done it in the past with buildings and maintenance on vehicles, things like that, where we've kept within our budget, not had to levy. Starting with the jail, we start to get into debt. We know, in the old saying, debt is dumb, we know cash is always a better route to go. So if we have money set aside right now, and we have a new wheelage tax bringing in almost $200,000 a year, we should be able to build this building without going to the taxpayers and running the levy up. That's my main concern is.
I don't have a problem with that, not levying for it. We just don't have any cost estimates yet.
Let's see what we can get for a minute.
Yeah,
Why not?
Well, that's what I'm saying is, let's see what we can get for a minute versus just saying, here, we want this, we want that, we want this, it's $3 million, that's what it's gonna have to be. Living within a budget, we wanna build a house, but we only make $100,000 between you and your spouse. You don't say, well, I want a jacuzzi, I want all marble floors, and yeah, that's cool, but you know that you can't afford it. So setting a budget first, saying, we have this amount of money that we feel comfortable allotting to this project, now make plans to fit within that set amount versus go make plans, we'll figure out what it costs later and how to get it. That I feel a lot more comfortable setting a number and working within the number than spending $50,000 on an architect, bringing up plans and saying, ooh, that's $5 million, oh, we don't want to spend that much. Well, now that $50,000 was all for naught.
No, you're not getting an architect at this point, are you?
Right, and
Well,
I don't feel
yes and no.
comfortable putting a cap on something that we don't even know what we're capping. I mean,
I feel
you
more
haven't
comfortable
shown
with having
anything
some cost.
what that 900,000 will build.
Ooh, that's what I'm saying is.
It's not a cap, it's what you can afford.
Right. That's what I'm saying. We need to find out what can we afford for $1 million. That's what I'm saying, is we need to find out what could we do. We might be able to do it all for $1 million.
But we don't know that, so how can, I can't vote in favor of something that doesn't have enough facts and figures around it. That's not being very conscientious about money.
So and I just want to make sure that we're clear that, because maybe we're miscommunicating here, but, so we should make plans for a building and then we'll figure out the cost of it later, is what you're saying?
No, we want to figure out the cost before we.
Right, so if we go to an
plans.
architect, what do we tell them? Or another even, in the reason, and I hate going to architects on certain projects, I think it gets way blown out of proportion, but how the system is set up for a governing agency, we have to make plans, and those plans have to get bid out so that everybody has equal plans to go by. So if we're not going to use our current plans, or we want to reduce them, we have to bring somebody in to make plans that we can therefore go out to another company so that each company has the same specs to go by. So now, if we get put into a corner where we have to get an architect, it's going to be expensive. We have to be able to tell them, here's our budget, this is what we need to do. We can't just say, well, we need a maintenance building, build us one.
Well, and this is, you guys, actually, this was the first meeting that you had. So from one meeting, you're coming back and wanting us to approve an imaginary building.
That would be probably the first step in the meeting would be to set out how much money are you willing to set aside, then we can start making plans. Just like when you build a house, we have $100,000 to build a house.
Do you have
We have to build a house.
$100,000 cash when you build your house?
We get approved from the bank for $100,000, right? So they're saying you only have this amount of money, we can only give you a loan for this amount of money. That's what I'm saying is we need to be able to do that, to say, this county only has this amount of money to be able to afford on this project.
I
So,
would be more
yes.
comfortable having some figures about what the needs could cost by a second opinion, not going to an architect. At this point,
We could set a budget of, let's say, $1 million, and we get a shell, something that's just completely non-compliant,
Right,
doesn't fit the purpose at all. It would be a complete waste of money.
right.
I guess I don't like the idea of throwing $50,000 at an architect, but there is some pluses to it. It does protect taxpayer dollars. They're oversight people. They will keep us in compliance. There are things that are OSHA specific will be taken care of. Lighting.
But we also know
Something
architects.
to fall back on.
Right, and we also know that architects can make things look really
Like it
pretty and a little bit above and beyond functionality, not worried about function.
No, we
But
just
that's,
go to an architect and say, I want conservative, absolute
Right.
conservative.
Yep.
I'm
Give me
gonna go
Give me
fluff it
4
up.
walls, a roof, make everything compliant on the inside, and, I want practical, pure practical.
so then that would be kind of the
Scales it
board's
down as
wishes
much as
is,
you can.
go to an architect, just tell them, we want to make a maintenance building, and then come back and we'll figure out if we can afford it, is what we're
why
saying, right?
don't you go for the second
Explore.
opinion that you
Yeah,
talked about
explore.
first?
It isn't $50,000 to get a plan to start with. I mean, $50,000 probably takes you through the entire project.
And it could, and even if it was 10,000, I mean, the whole point is whatever you spend on an architect, if all of a sudden they come back and you say, oh, okay, that's $3.5 million, we can't afford it, we don't want to.
I think that's better than
Scale it
saying,
back, now you go back, and I mean, it'd be nicer to be able to go back to somebody and say, okay, we have X amount of dollars we can put into this project, we need a maintenance building. You're the architect, figure out how to stretch our dollar as far as we possibly can, because here's our cap.
We have a motion on the floor, I'd like to call for a vote.
Okay.
What's the motion again?
Motion is to cap it at $1 million.
Yep.
In order, okay.
And using the $600,000 we have set aside in 2 years of the wheelage tax and any MCIT dividends that come in that amount of time. So we're not going to the taxpayers for a dollar. Request for a roll call.
District, let's see, 1, Judy.
Nay.
District 2, Justin.
Aye.
District 3,
No.
District 4,
No,
District 5.
Aye.
Thank you.
but go back to your committee and get some more information.
We keep working on it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Because we have to do something, we know that. Let's just
Yep.
keep plodding along.
Yep.
All right, that covers, and courthouse issues.
Which is a little more
Okay.
now today.
I think we covered a lot of courthouse issues today. And
Is
this
there anything
all-
other than what we could cover that you guys can think of?
No word, and now the legislature's not even in session. I think when they go back, I'm going to lobby again with Jeremy and
Buy them some more.
Mhm. Keep pushing it, even if we can get a part of a legacy grant. And Jeremy definitely said he would support it.
They just throw us a bone.
Yeah, something. All right. No other business to come before the board?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.